Namaste, this is Stephen from YogaWorks. Welcome to your practice. It's time to loosen up. Maybe you've just woken up. I'm filming this in the winter time, so naturally we're a little bit more stiff in the mornings, or maybe the whole day. Maybe you've been working or sitting in one position for a long time. Maybe you've just done sports and you just want a little after stretch. This one is for you. We're going to be moving through some really effective but quite effective on time stretches that will loosen up mainly the whole region around the hip area. Let's get started. Sit in a wide-legged seated position. Stretch the legs wide. You can press your hands behind you and then lengthen the spine a bit. If it feels like you're leaning back, then just your only job will be to sit up as tall as possible. And if you don't feel a lot just yet, your inner thighs, your hamstrings are still fine, just walk a little bit forward with the hands until you feel, okay, this is a good place to stay for a little bit. And then ever so slightly dig your heels down into the ground or into the mat. And imagine you're creating the action of dragging your heels closer to you, which is going to engage the hamstrings. The toes, I like to lift them straight up so don't let the feet collapse in or out. Keep them a little bit active. And just feel the solid base through the whole backs of the legs, your calves, your hamstrings, your sit bones, and then the heels, which are still pulling in ever so slightly. Good. Come into cross-legged seat. Let's start right shin in front of the left, and then cross your shins straight down the middle. Have your feet and your knees more or less in the same line. Good. And then lean a little bit forward until you feel something interesting. And then a couple of times lift the knees, lower the knees. So you're pulling the knees up towards your armpits, and then you're lowering them down as far as they'll go. You might be sitting more straight up, that's totally fine, so don't worry about this. Lift, lower, let's do one more. Lift, and lower a moment to sink to your full expression of the pose. It's early on, so don't worry if there's not so much space yet. That's why we're here to loosen up. And then swap around, left shin in front of the right. Flex your feet, shins cross down the middle. Make it quite compact so the knees don't go out very far. It's going to be a better stretch for outer hips. And then same thing, lean a little bit forward if that's necessary to feel more. And then lift the knees, lower the knees. A couple of times, maybe 5 or so. Repeat this. And then just feel what's happening around the hips. What is available today. What feels a little bit restricted. That's what we're working with. And then lift back up. Talking about restricted, this one is really hard for me. It's Baddha Konasana, the bound angle pose. Place the soles of the feet together. You can wrap your hands around the edges of your feet or your toes. Let the knees go wide. And then lift the chest a little bit. And this is it for me. This is, it's not quite Instagram ready, I know, but I've got some tightness around the inner thighs, the groin area. So if this is you, then don't worry about it. And then a couple of times, lift the knees up and lower them down. Lift and lower. And if your knees go way lower than mine, then just keep going until you stop. That's totally fine. 2 more, lift and lower. So we're working with the muscles that we're also stretching and lengthening. And then release that. Nice. Stretch left leg long. Pull your right foot back next to the right hip into, this is half hero. So it's a really great quad stretch into the front of that right thigh here. And notice I'm not sitting on the heel, I'm just sort of inside the heel. If that's not working or your knee is sore, then just lift the hips up a bit by sitting on a block or a cushion or something. That's gonna make it more doable. Couple of breaths here, and then gently press the top of that right foot down into the mat, almost like you're about to stand up, but you're not, of course. Good, swap sides. Right leg goes long, left foot pull it back next to your hip, and then wiggle a little bit so you're sitting inside this foot. If that's not happening, you feel extreme tightness in the quad here or any pain in the knee, then definitely back off and rather sit up on the block, or you can even sit on that heel, which is gonna reduce the intensity a lot. So take care of your joints. We're here to loosen up and not to injure ourselves trying to get into a pose that we're not ready for. Good. And then that's a little warm up. Now step right foot forward, left foot back into a simple lunge. Start to pull the hips back and keep this right knee a little bit bent. We've got the inclination to always want to straighten this, but that's not always the best course of action. On the contrary, keep the right knee a little bit bent and dig your right heels into the mat. Heels, you've only got one right heel, I hope. So dig that one into the mat and then create the action of pulling it a little bit towards you. With the upper body, if you don't have so much space, then you just lift up a little bit, maybe put something underneath the hands, or you bend the right knee a bit more so that your fingertips can touch down. Keep pressing down, keep pulling back, keep lengthening the spine. And then the easier and calmer your breath is, the more benefit you will receive from these poses. So see if you can tune into the breath. Good, we're turning to the other side. I just turned around, but you can also step your other foot forward. Right hip is above right knee. Left heel is digging down. I'm pushing it down, that's with the force of the left hamstring. And I'm also pulling it a little bit back. It's not moving because it's stuck on the mat, but I'm feeling this engagement in the left hamstring, which is also lengthening because I'm leaning forward with the spine. Couple of moments here, again, tune into breath, easy, calm, comfortable. That's what we're looking for, and it's going to give you more access to these muscles that we are seeking to lengthen. If the breath feels like it's an emergency or you're really straining, then your body's not going to let you in. Good, swap to the first side again, and now we're going pigeon pose. Pigeon pose on the right leg, so stretch the right knee forward, stretch the left leg back, and make it a little bit active. So I'm really pushing that front knee and shin down, and I'm also pressing the front of that back leg down, and then lift up a little bit through the chest. Press, press, press. You should be able to press down so much that your hands become lighter. Maybe you don't even need the hands down. It's a good test. We don't have to do it for the whole duration of the pose, but just see for a moment where you can lift your hands up. Good, you can place the hands back down. Now the fancy swivel change. It works like this. Lift up a bit, shift this right heel to the inside, and then sit down with your right sit bone on that right heel. Left leg goes long, so now we've got a sort of a half seated wide-legged twist, not twist, forward fold, and then just lean a little bit forward. And imagine really splitting the legs apart. One goes this way, one goes the other way. Keep the legs nice and active, and see if you can get into that groin, the adductor muscles. Good. Release that. We're stepping to the other side, so left foot forward, unless if you've done the other side. And then wiggle the foot to the side to come into pigeon pose. Left knee to the left side of the mat. Right leg goes straight back. Set it up, and then push down with both legs. Whatever's touching the ground, let it touch the ground a little bit more firmly. And then see if you can do that so much that your hands become a little bit lighter. Hold for 3, 2, 1. Your hands can come down again. Fancy swivel change. If you want to show off in your yoga video, that's how you do it. No, maybe there's better ways to show off. We're here to get loose, and also it helps to not take things too seriously, because that will just tighten us up, isn't it? Mentally, but also physically. So here we are, we're on one knee, the left knee, and then the right leg goes long. Do something a little bit active with this right foot, don't let it just flop down. And I feel more on this side. This right inner thigh seems to be a bit tighter than the left. It's good to notice these things, but don't make a big story out of it. It's just fine. And then swivel back to the right side. We're doing lizard pose. So place both hands inside your right foot. Right foot, you can walk it out a bit so you've got more space. Then lower with a long spine, so you're still lengthening. Bend the elbows a bit until you stop. If you're in a more active pose, you can tuck the back toes under and lift the left knee. Or if you need more support, leave the knee down, that's fine. Couple of breaths here. You can either be steady and stable, or if you like, you can also do a little bit of movement. Sometimes I like to move my upper body from side to side, and it feels like you're noodling around in those tight spots around the hip there. Good, fancy change coming up again. Here we go, let's try. Right knee comes down into half frog. Left leg goes wide, and then slide the left leg out. So it's almost like gate pose, which would be more like this, but then we're sliding wider and wider and wider and wider until you stop. Good, for this one we're a little bit more upright. You can support yourself on the fingertips, and as we've done before, whatever touches the mat, push it down, and in this case we're pulling both legs a little bit together underneath us so that we're lightly engaging these muscles that we are lengthening. The body reacts well to this kind of stretching because it feels there's stability, there's engagement, there's safety in moving in that way, and there's less chance of getting injured when your muscles are active, when we're not just hanging down in a passive stretch. Okay, might be a little bit stuck here, but just to get unstuck. For lizard on the second side, I'm wiggling left foot a little bit wider. Hands inside the left foot. Long spine, so I don't want to excessively round the back so that my head appears lower. It's not about your head. This pose is about the left hip mostly. And then you lengthen the spine, you can bend the elbows a bit. And maybe you tuck the back toes under and you straighten a bit through this right leg. Good, either stay here a few breaths to relax as much as possible. It's a tough pose, so do your best. Or maybe you like the movement, turning a little bit left, turning a little right. Maybe you twist a bit, whatever feels good. Just explore. Good. Left knee comes down. Keep the shin in line and the foot 90 degrees. And then the right leg goes up. This is gate pose if we were to stay higher up. But once we slide out, it's not so easy to slide on the sticky mat. Then we get into more of a half frog position. If both knees were down, that's the full frog. Everyone's favorite pose, I know it. So I'm lifting the right toes, so I get a bit of external rotation in this right leg. And this is going to be a bit more extra stretch for the inner thigh. We're also getting a bit more towards the back of the leg, the hamstrings, when we do this. As before, I'm grounding down through this left knee, the right heel, and I'm pulling both of them towards the midline a little bit. You might not be able to see this when somebody else does it, but when you do it, I'm sure you will feel the difference. All right, now step both feet wide. There's no fancy transition. Parallel the feet, press your feet down and then pull them towards the midline. If there's less space, then just have your hands higher on blocks is good, on your hips is good, all of this is fine. If there's a bit more space, then you can walk your hands a little bit back and maybe fold down. If your head touches down too easily, then you need to just walk your feet a little bit closer so that you have more space to fold into, and it's more of a challenge for your flexibility. Keep the legs active. Can you lift your kneecaps by engaging both quads? Lift, lift, lift the kneecaps. Pull your feet together. And then slowly release. Nice. Last pose. Place right knee down and left knee in front of it for Gomukhasana, the cow face pose. Sit down in between the feet. If this is not happening, you can't quite ground down with ease, then just place something underneath your hips. A pillow or a blanket will do just fine. Good, and then here, we're adding something. With the left arm, go underneath this left knee. Actually, with the right arm might work a little bit better now that I think about it. With the right arm, go underneath. I'm lifting the knee up a bit. And then with the knee, I'm pushing down quite strongly into this right forearm. Hello, outer hip. Those are some of the glute muscles, the piriformis, a lot of external hip rotators that are starting to speak to us here. And really push your knee down into your arm, into your forearm. And if you can, slow the breath down. This is our final resting pose, because it's a short loosening up practice. Okay, that's good for the sides. Swap the legs, so right knees on top. I often like to come a little bit forward just to stack the knees and then sit down. It just feels like gets me into the pose a little bit better. But if you've got your own favorite way, good, do that. So I'm sitting in between the heels. You might need to lift the hips up for a little bit more grounding and space. Good, lean a tiny bit forward. Left elbow, wrap it around the top knee, which is now the right. Lift the knee up a bit. And then with the right knee, I'm pushing down quite hard onto this left forearm. It's like a tug of war between the knee and the forearm. Who's going to win? Push the knee down, push the knee down. The arm is holding out strong. It's not letting that knee go all the way down. And your outer hip, yeah, I'm speechless. This outer hip. This is a really good stretch. It feels like you're doing less than normal, but you just have made it a lot more active. You're not just passively sinking into it. Good. Slowly release. Now, this was it. Short loosening up practice. I hope you enjoyed. Repeat this really often. It only takes a couple of minutes a day to do at least some of these exercises, and you'll feel a massive difference if you move in this way more regularly. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for loosening up. We need more of this in the world. And namaste. See you again soon.